Which brings me to the final thing that we watched together, which was the Castlevania series. The Netflix Castlevania show. It was just one of those things, like we were looking for something to watch, and she gave me the remote, and I was like, you know what? I heard this was good. We should probably watch it, especially because like the first season I knew was really short. It's like 4 episodes. I'm like, yeah, it's like what, 2 hours? We'll just watch that and like go to sleep. And so we put it on, and Castlevania is a weird show because I remember hearing really good things about it when it came out, and I was like, oh hey, I guess they didn't fuck it up. And no, they didn't fuck it up. So you know, it's not like the Monster Hunter movie. How do I describe it? It's kind of weird. I guess I'll start with the first season. So the first season of Castlevania... So number one, what I thought was really neat is that they're adapting Castlevania 3, which is a really cool game that doesn't get a lot of recognition. But of the Castlevania... If you're going to like start the Castlevania story, right? Castlevania 3 is a pretty great point to like first thing to adapt, because it is technically a prequel. And it kind of is the most like of what the game itself offers, kind of has the most like stuff to draw from to adapt. Like there's multiple party members, so you have like you actually have like, oh, we can actually have a cast of characters who like hang out and go on an adventure. You have a progression. So one neat thing that Castlevania 3 does is like branching paths and things like that on the map, that so you could pick which level to go to. Like there's like a progression of how the levels follow. It's not just kind of sort of arbitrary. I mean, like the Castlevania 3, kind of an off topic, but Castlevania 3 kind of attempts where Simon's Quest kind of failed with the open world stuff. Simon's Quest kind of tones it down and kind of like streamlines it and combines that part with like the kind of linear style from Castlevania 1. And yeah, anyway, so there's like it's a great starting point. Whoever had it was a great idea to adapt Castlevania 3, because you're setting up the whole Belmont family and yeah, all this. So you get the first I think Trevor was I believe in the game's canon, he's like the first one to fight Dracula or something like that. He was the first Belmont to fight Dracula. He started the Belmont Dracula conflict that, you know, repeats every 100 years or something like that. So the first season, not a lot happens. It felt really weird. I was expecting a lot more I was expecting it to be a lot more compact, but it like takes its time to the point where I'm like, so how does this end? It's pretty much Trevor. He's a bum. They do the whole thing with like, oh, Dracula's what, you know, the classic story from the games. Dracula's wife, who is a human, gets burned at the stake for being a witch. He freaks out and declares a war on humanity. Starts summoning a horde of darkness, an army of the undead and the monstrous, to roam the countryside and attack humanity. And Trevor's just sort of this like kind of bum. He's the Belmont family was basically they really lean into the idea that the church in this world has become overly like institutional. It's become corrupt. They don't they're like the church from Warhammer. It's like the church in 40K. Just overly worked into their like institutional mindset. And they've basically excommunicated the Belmont clan, because they think that they're like corrupted or something, when they're really the only ones who know how to fight monsters. And then he finds this kind of town that's just been under siege, and sort of ends up kind of roped into helping this kind of traveling, this nomadic sort of group of people called speakers, who are these sort of like almost like these traveling sort of sages. They record all their history orally, and they pass things down just through like spoken word and stuff like that. And he has to basically, so the church is blaming the speakers for the attacks on the town by the undead, and basically Trevor has to. He kind of like he's kind of going through. It's really Trevor focused. It's like getting him kind of established and back up on his feet. How does he kind of pick up the torch again? How does he get back in the game? Find like a new motivation, at least somewhat. And and then what Kat was looking forward to is she knew that Sifa was in the show, and she really was looking forward to Sifa showing up. And Sifa does not show up until like midway through episode 3 or something like that. And then the ending of the show is pretty much they find Alucard. And then it's like a cliffhanger, and I was like, oh wow, they were very confident that this and to be honest, to be fair, like apparently, I think I looked it up. I was curious about the production history. Apparently season 2 was like announced the same day season 1 came out. That's really common. That's like a really common thing. I'm assuming what it was is they were like, okay, we think we kind of trust, they trusted the production enough. Usually most cartoons, most shows, to be honest, well, specifically cartoons, like specifically animation, because animation has a longer, it can have a much longer production time. Like you kind of got to get it started a little earlier than some live action stuff. So what'll happen pretty often is that a lot of animated series will get at least 2 seasons, because like it's basically the production studios, like, or the whoever's paying for it, their upfront sort of buy is like, okay, you'll get 2 seasons, and if the first season does well, you'll do the second season. The second season will also probably get at least like a guarantee. I mean, sequels always have like a guaranteed, what is it, 40% return? You make at least 40% of what the original made, that kind of thing. And if the second season premieres well, then we'll renew you for a third, and then so on and so on and so on. They kind of plan this stuff in advance. They don't say, like, they don't announce like, oh, the Castlevania series is going to be 2 seasons. They say, hey, Castlevania is getting a 4-episode series on Netflix, and then the day that it gets announced, to get it back in the news cycle, like 6 hours after it's dropped, or like a day or 2 after it's dropped, season 2 has been greenlit. They already paid for season 2 when they bought the show. That's what they don't want to tell you. So it kind of feels, so season 2 is like 8 episodes, which is funny because it almost feels like they wanted like a 12-episode season. But the first season is like a little trial run, almost like, hey, like it was like a little trial run of like a little proof of concept. Like, hey, let's not go too crazy animating 12 whole episodes. Let's start you guys off with like 4. And then around the time it premieres, you can start working on the next one, kind of thing. I don't know if that was like exactly how it went down, but yeah, and so like it really feels like, oh well, I'm glad we're watching this now that there's like 4 seasons out, so we can just go straight to figure out what this cliffhanger goes to. Excuse me. So season 2, we watched season 1 and 2. Season 2, the gang's all assembled. Trevor, Sifa, and Alucard, and you know what? They're really cool together. Trevor's this kind of like, he's still sort of a deadbeat, like he's got a little fire back in him again, but he's still kind of like, fuck yeah, guy. Alucard is this sort of haughty, kind of like he and Trevor don't really get along. Obviously, because Alucard's like a half vampire, and the Belmonts kill vampires. So there's sort of that like inbuilt kind of rivalry. They kind of like to hate on each other. They sort of, they don't legitimately dislike each other. Really, they have that fun kind of like they talk shit to each other, but they don't super seriously like want to kill the other one. And they work together and stuff like that. And it's like and Sifa's kind of like their level-headed one who she holds everyone together. And it's a solid little trio dynamic. And the thing with season 2 is that season 2 is, so Kat and I had very different opinions on season 2. A lot of season 2 is spent with in Dracula's castle with him, with Big D and his generals, who I'm pretty sure are like all bosses from Castlevania 3, as well as these 2 human characters who are actually from Curse of Darkness, which was a game that I didn't realize existed, because Curse of Darkness, could you come up with a more generic name for a Castlevania game? But no, it wasn't, which apparently had Trevor in it, which is apparently what seasons 3 and 4 are kind of adapting. And they introduce a character from Curse of Darkness, or 2 of them, Simon and Isaac, in this season. Kind of build them up. So you spend a lot of time with Dracula's court. You spend a lot of time in the castle with characters talking to each other about why they want to send the army here instead of here, and why they believe, what they believe about the world and people, and their thoughts on Dracula, and why they think these things, and their backstories, and the way they see the world. And Kat fucking hated it. I could tell. I could tell her next to me, she was so bored. Okay, my Audacity just lagged for a second. She was so bored watching it. And I felt a little awkward because I love that shit. I won't lie to you guys. I love long sequences of characters talking to each other about what they believe and why they believe it. And just like learning about each other and understanding what kind of, the audience gets to understand what kind of people they are. I eat that shit up. It was some tasty just characterization, I guess. I don't know. I understand where she's coming from, and if you thought that was boring as shit, I get it. There's like no action for God, like 4 episodes straight, and no, you can feel in like an 8-episode series, you can feel the points where the writers were like, fuck, we haven't like had any action in this Castlevania show in a while. And there's like filler action scenes. There's at least 2 that I can remember. There's one where Godbrand, was that his name? Godbrand, the Viking vampire. There's totally like, I could just see them and like, fuck, what do we do? Godbrand has a dream about a time that he killed some guys and had a lot of fun killing some guys. And then he wakes up, and then we're back, and people talk about their feelings for more. It has no impact on anything. It leads to nothing. But we got to show people dying. We got to show some heads getting chopped off. Godbrand is getting impatient like the audience, and he leads the other generals, and they go on a night raid on a town, and they kill some people. And I was waiting for that to come back up. I was waiting for like the consequences of it. I was waiting for that to be a setup for something. No, it's just filler. It's just there because they realized that they hadn't had any action in like 2 episodes. So we need to have some people explode. And hey, I mean, it's well animated. When action happens in this show, it's slick, it's well choreographed, it's cool. The characters use their abilities and their weapons in cool ways. The monsters are neat. The powers that people use are cool. It's really well done. It just doesn't happen very much in the 2nd season. And I could see that being a sticking point for a lot of people. It doesn't help that, like, the main characters are in, like, a basement for, like, 90% of the show. Not, like, 90%. They get to the basement in, like, episode 2. They go to, like, the Belmont estate. They go to the Belmont estate. And they go... because they go into the basement because like, oh, they need to, they're looking for, the basement is the only thing that's left of the house pretty much. And it's this giant like library, basically this multi-story library that goes deep underground, and it's just filled to the brim with like trinkets and weapons and knickknacks and just books of history and knowledge about fighting the undead and all of these things. And I spend like 6 episodes in there. They spend like 4 or 5 episodes in this basement reading books and having a couple conversations about what they believe and why they believe it. And you know, that stuff with them is fun. Like they're a solid main cast of characters, but man, they do not feel like the main characters in the show in season 2. And then in like the last 2-3 episodes, it, in Kat's words, gets good because something happens. There's a big action sequence. It's basically this long, like 2-episode climax. The last episode is this weird kind of like really extended epilogue. But the episodes like 6 and 7 are just like, the real climax of the season. You get the confrontation with Dracula, and this is like a full spoiler thing. I don't know if you picked up on that by now. This is like a full spoiler thing. I'm just gonna spoil the end of the season. They get this the confrontation with Dracula. That stuff was great. I thought Dracula was pretty interesting. Like I really enjoy learning about the psychology of characters, and I think that they did a good job. Arguably, you know, took it a little too slowly, but I think they did a good job of establishing Dracula as a character without him really speaking much, and mostly just people talking about him and what they think of him, and their kind of interpretations of who he is. How he's this, like, you kind of get this picture that he's this obviously this kind of ferocious, angry vampire lord, but like on the inside he's this kind of just like tired, broken, very hurt person who is lashing out like in anger, but really at the heart of it, it's like this bitterness and this resentment for humanity, like this just ultimate misanthrope, nihilism. He just wants to kill everything, and this is kind of like a point of contention between the generals, is that they kind of see, they worry because they're like, okay, if we kill, do you want to kill all the humans? Because like then we can't eat things, or do you just want to like lower the population and basically make them livestock, or what's your deal? What's your plan? And he basically just tells them to like shut up and he'll take care of it and they'll be fine. And they kind of, some of them don't really trust him, and they might have reason to. Like, I think that like I think it's neat that you could have taken that in a couple different ways. Maybe Dracula really would have taken care of the other vampires. Maybe his goal was just he was so nihilistic and jaded and broken and resentful at that point that he really did just want to wipe out all human life on the earth and then all the vampires and everything, and basically keep himself as the last one alive, so that he could just like live in a world without humanity and then, I don't know, die himself or something like that. Like, I think there's an interesting psychology there. And there's a pretty good last fight between him. So, Trevor and Sifa, they do their part. The writers do a good job making sure that each of the three gets pretty balanced in terms of like contributing to the fights that they're in. Like that you can see, and I think it does good to like, for how few action scenes there are with all of them, you do get the sense that they do actually gel and work together and that they work together as a team, even if they don't always get along, that they fight well together. And okay, that's like an interesting way of, it's like a fun way that in a show like this, and like an action show, to show that the characters do work together. Or to show like a different kind of relationship between them. But really, this is a fight between Alucard and his father. And it's really good. Like, the action is great. It's really cool to see these two super powerful, like, vampire characters who are, like, fast, and they can kind of, like, float, and they're super strong and powerful, and they can use this magic. Just kind of like go kind of all out against each other with this added drama that it's father and son. And God, the scene where Alucard finally kills Dracula, wow, that's great. If you've seen it, wow, that's great. Dracula basically smashes Alucard into a room. He walks in, he realizes that it's Alucard's childhood room, and he has this moment where like literally like the blood clears, like the blood red from his eyes kind of clears, and God, the voice actor does a great job. What's his name? I wanna something with like an AY. Something with an AY. Dracula. Graham McTavish, that's his name. He does a great job of going from this just like utter rage to this moment where he just stops and he there's this complete lapse, and Alucard doesn't take advantage of the moment. He's just kind of like dumbfounded by what he's seeing. His father, he looks around, and Dracula just he just kind of like, he's just talking to himself, and he's like, oh God, he's talking to like his dead wife pretty much, as if she were there. Like he's killing their boy. He's fucking, he thinks about, he remembers the times that they painted his room and they made toys for him, and I was like, I'm getting choked. This is really sad. It's like, oh God, like all the weight of like this monster who's become just completely crashes down on him in this moment. He's completely paralyzed pretty much with like shame and guilt, and like he doesn't even know what to do. And then in kind of a symbolic sense, Alucard like breaks a piece of wood, like he breaks the bedpost of like his childhood bed off and stakes Dracula through the heart, because like it's the only way it could have ended. It's the only way that it could have ended, really. Like, what else was he supposed to do? That's like the impression that you get. Like, the whole drama of that's always been like a compelling part of the Alucard character in the games, right? That I don't know how. I've only really played Symphony of the Night with Alucard, like, you know, interacting with the big D, but like that's always like it's such a great material for a story. It's just the son coming back to kill his father, and like all these complicated emotions that are tied up in that. And I think that, like, for as much as I wish there was more of Alucard in like season 2, I think that they do a pretty good job kind of communicating that sort of melancholy that he has about this situation. That, like, he has this duty to stop his father, but obviously, you know, he has some emotions. He has some things which he's, like, you know, he's overcoming, and he's not gonna give up because he feels bad about killing his father, but it's there and it's real, and he has to, like, think about it. I think that they did a really job with that. I thought that scene was super powerful, and the last scene of the show is Dracula's dead. The horde of monsters has, I don't know if it's dissipated, but the threat from Dracula is gone. The war is pretty much over. And Trevor and Sifa basically, Alucard basically says, "Yeah, I kind of want to go fucking die now." And Trevor's like, kind of convinces him, like, "No, you have such a great opportunity of all the knowledge." He's like, "I'll give you the Belmont, like, I'll give you the Belmont, like, treasure trove, pretty much. And you take the castle, and you take this, like, this is one of the greatest collections of information in the world with these two resources together, and you should make something better out of it. Like, you should." And it's like, oh, this is like, Trevor wouldn't have said this at the start of the show. Trevor would have just been like, "Yeah, you should. I'll fucking do it for you, dude." Right now, right here. But now, like, Trevor, because he's gone through his own little development of, like, now he feels like, yeah, I can find meaning in my own life. Like, maybe Alucard can do the same. And he doesn't want to just see this person who's done nothing but bicker with the whole show. He still doesn't want to see him just go and die, right? And it's like, some character growth and like, cool. And Alucard, they leave. Sifa and Trevor. Kat told me that all she wanted the show to be was like the Trevor and Sifa show. And they kind of go off, and they're like, well, maybe we can have some more adventures together. And Alucard is just sort of left at the castle, and there's a little epilogue scene in the last episode of him, you know, like, going into a room and fixing a portrait of his mother, and then he sits down in a chair, and he just starts crying. And he just starts, like, weeping. And then it just pulls back on a shot of the whole room and him just crying his fucking eyes out. And then the season's over. And that's how it ends. And I really liked it. Yeah, so I guess spoilers end here. Or if you're not, or if, I guess, I don't know, if you want to skip or something, I don't know. Yeah, will I mark it? Maybe I'll mark where the spoilers start and end. Yeah, in the podcast, so I guess check out for that. So would I recommend the first 2 seasons of Castlevania? If you're like me and you can enjoy long sequences where, like, the whole episode is characters talking about what they believe, who they are and what they believe, and flashbacks, and telling you about, like, the psychology of the character. And if you enjoy that kind of thing, like me, yeah, I thought it was pretty enjoyable. And it's kind of topped off with some very slick, well animated, well choreographed action, with cool usage of characters, like characters' abilities and things. Lots of, things from the game. Sifa uses a spell from the games. Obviously, Trevor's got the whip and the short sword. A couple like enemies and stuff. There's like that big bird thing. It's like that thing with like the bird head that's holding a spear. Like that guy. Like that thing shows up. And I'm like, from the games. There's a kind of a cute little sequence where it's like a very subtle reference, but Trevor and Sifa, it's when they find Alucard, and he's in this like super deep underground lair, basically, and they basically fall through all these layers of stuff of basically underground castle, and they drop onto these gears, and they have to kind of like it's only like 1 second, but I'm pretty sure it's a reference to like all those parts in Castlevania where like you gotta do platforming on moving gears and stuff like that, like giant gears. Just kind of, some fun stuff like that. Like, not super in your face, like, this is a reference to the game. Just, oh, hey, it's that thing. Oh, it's that thing. Yeah, like the stuff that you would want to see, basically, if you're coming from the games. But also perfectly understandable if you have never played the games and don't know anything about it. It's just, hey, it's a vampire show. It's a show about a vampire. Well, it's a guy who kills vampires and stuff. But, yeah, overall good. We're really interested in the later seasons because I don't know. We're very curious about like where the second the second half of the series will go. Seasons 3 and 4. Like, will it get more actiony? I wouldn't mind. Cat's like, okay, it has like one more chance. If there's more action and not just a lot of talking all episode, maybe she'll like it. And if there's more Trevor and Sifa, which I would also like to see, yeah, I think it could maybe turn it around, at least for her. For me, I'd love more of just season 2. But hey, that's just me. There's a reason I don't rule the world. Yeah, but overall, pretty good. I have to say I enjoyed my time with it, but take that with a grain of salt that I'm a weirdo.